Most people walk completely alone, especially when they're around other people. If you watch people, if you watch how they walk and how they look, where they turn their eyes to, you can tell they're not really seeing what's around them. A lot of the time, their eyes might be pointed in a particular direction because they're laying their eyes there, and just in case something does get in their way, or just in case they have to navigate through something on their way to the destination that they have set out for themselves. But there's all of this mental chatter going on that is mirroring the mental chatter that is existing in the world in the form of other people. But you'll see people looking down in thought. You'll see people looking directly ahead, laying their eyes there for the course ahead. But there's all of this other stuff that's going on just below the surface that has nothing to do with what's going on around that person. And it's interesting. Sometimes when you see people walking alone and there's really not anybody else around, except for the person viewing, which is you start to see some people realize, wow, there's nobody else around. This is really strange. I should be more aware of my environment. But when there's other people around, most people walk completely lost with themselves in their own thoughts. Even if there's somebody with them, even if they're in a group of people, a lot of the time people will be thinking of what they're going to say next or thinking about their train of thought rather than truly listening. So it's almost like talking to themselves while being in the presence of others. Being truly present. There's a way to walk with presence, and there's a way to listen and be around other people and be present with them. I've only been to Europe a couple times, and they were both educational trips. Didn't cost very much. I didn't do a lot of partying or anything, but I did see a lot of educational historical sites. But I remember being in Paris, and specifically in front of a cathedral, but ironically also outside of a McDonald's. So there's a McDonald's in the same area where this beautiful cathedral was. It's a microcosm of capitalism, I suppose, and in the presence of history. But I remember watching everybody walk around. They were obviously stuck in their heads, or they were busy. They had to get somewhere. They had to do something. They didn't have time to, be present where they were or really pay attention to life as they were traveling. It was all about the travel, getting to that destination, and then all of this mental chatter going on in their heads. I imagine. I could be completely wrong, but I imagine. But I was caught a little by surprise when I saw this man in this ochre orange robe, worn in the style of a Buddhist monk. Shaven head. I don't know if he was a Zen monk, but he definitely had the vibe of a Buddhist monk. Ochre robe, more like a Buddhist monk. But while all of these people were walking around him, almost like they were not even seeing him at all, like he was not out of the ordinary, but they were just so lost in themselves and in their travel, they didn't even really notice him slowly walking through all of these people going different directions in this plaza. And I remember watching him and watch him truly be present and looking around himself. Very old man. I would say probably 70s. But I remember him truly looking around. And it was almost like he could see everything. And he was seeing everyone, but nobody was seeing each other. He was walking while not thinking. It takes a lot of effort to be able to quiet the mind enough to where there isn't a background story going on. There isn't a whole nother line of thought. There is just you there. And what it also requires is acting, even if you have to act in the world, and even resist something in the world. Resist hunger, resist not having money, resist being a social outcast, resist not being a loser in however you define the word loser, or however you think of what you don't want to be, resisting that. Most of us are resisting. We're resisting so much that resistance is at our core. We're resisting what we don't want to become, what we don't want to happen to us, and failure itself. We're resisting so much that it's the place from which we act. But if we can do almost all the same actions, we don't have to redefine ourselves. We don't have to become a completely different person in how we understand ourselves or in what we're doing. But if we can find a way to, at our core, have a core of non-resistance, of flow, of almost inaction, yet it's almost like laying on the surface of water and allowing water to carry you down a stream or a river or in a pool. You're allowing the water to carry you. And that's how, don't resist the water, because you can chop away at the water. You can try to grab it, but you can't hold on to it. That's not how you swim. You have to learn how to not resist the water in order to float. At our core, we have to be like that. No matter what happens around us, even if we fail again and again, even if we fail in our resistance of what we don't want to become or what we don't want to experience, if we fail in resisting that, if from our core we can act from a place of non-action, act from a place of flow and non-resistance, and respond in the external world, but not resist the current circumstance at our core, but just accept, allow, and don't try to force something to become, then we will find that whatever actions we take in the external world, they'll be more fluid. They might be very similar actions to what we would have taken before, with a core of resistance, but with a core of non-resistance and flow and allowance of everything to be as it is and how it must be. We'll find that life is much better for us. It's much more enjoyable. And we react in whichever ways we need to react to make our lives better, to move our lives forward. But from a core of non-action and non-resistance, we find that our emotions are also more fluid and can react in a way that doesn't bump up against the reality we find before us and try to resist the reality that we find before us. But even our emotions become accepting of whatever reality there is around us. And when it's time to be sad, we can be sad. When it's time to be happy, we can be happy. But a lot of the time when we're resisting everything, when we want something to be other than it is so much, and we're always acting from that place, we end up having no shred of peace within ourselves, no shred of calmness. And we end up acting like buffoons in our actions and in the way we carry ourselves in the world and in our reactions to the world. When we have a core of resistance and we're completely reactionary, rather than allowing things to be, you can still act, you can still resist, but at your core, allow. And it's hard to feel that at our core, because we're so used to resisting, especially Rajasic society, restless society. This world itself is a restless world. But to understand how to truly see something, to be able to truly see something, to be present with something, to really see and be present, they're one and the same. To really even see mentally, assess correctly. But you have to first develop a way to not assess anything, to just see. If you can, the reason why we don't really understand the world and we're frustrated by it is because we have all these definitions for things. We have all these names of the forms around us, that we have a completely different reality or conception of reality in our head than the reality that exists external, that's around us, directly around us. We start developing names for forms at an early age. We're told that's a pencil, that's a stapler, that's a desk, that's a toy, that's a tire, that's a swing set, that's a bed. And we're also told how to value people. That person, and a lot of the time parents do this by accident, and society does this by accident. We're not told directly to not value homeless people. Sometimes we are if you're around bad people, but We're not said, homeless people are just bums. That's not usually what people say. But in their actions and their attitudes towards people, we're very much taught to not value those people as much as others, and to value rich people the most by them having all the stuff that we're all working towards, all working to get. That's the influence of society. So we start having these value judgments about forms, and we start having all these names of forms. Now, I'm taking this from Alan Watts, but he said in a podcast I was listening to recently that if you can not name something, then you can truly see it. Then the name always conjures up within us a certain outline of what something looks like and what something is and its value. If you can not name something, if you can just hold an object in your mind without having extra words attached to it, or not even hold it in your mind, if you can just see it with your eyes and somehow not hold it in your mind and assess it, if you can just see something without having words pop into your head, if you can just practice that, then being truly present will be much, much easier. And that alone is its own mountain to climb. And the way to develop the ability to truly see something is you have to think of something that is completely meaningless, that has no equivalency in your world, and to not draw equivalencies with things in your world. For instance, just imagine a black circle and a white void, or just white with a black circle. Hold that in your mind's eye and just breathe and just try to hold on to that. And of course, it's hard to hold things in your mind's eye. It might take practice. It comes in flashes because that's how our brain, we have to develop the ability to even out our brain so it's not just flashes, to where we can visualize just a circle, just a black circle in a white void, where we can hold that image in our brain. But just try to breathe and imagine that within your mind's eye. Just breathe, and every time you think of other thoughts, just bring yourself back to the circle. Any words that come by, don't attach yourself to those words. Just let them go by. Don't hold on to them. Don't expand upon those words. Don't continue the sentence that your mind wants to start for you. Just let them pass and keep on imagining that circle that doesn't mean anything. The longer you can imagine that circle, takes practice. Breath, coordinating your breath evenly, and deeply, and slowly will help tremendously with this. But the longer you can hold that circle in your mind's eye, the more you'll start to feel how much more breathing room mentally that you have. And you start to, this is just one exercise, but you start to feel how much space there can be in your head for your awareness to move around. Because usually your awareness is always bumping into different sentences, ideas, forms, thoughts, names, values. But your awareness doesn't need to be surrounded by all those things. It can just be surrounded by its experience of itself. And once again, just try to imagine a circle. Black circle doesn't mean anything against a white background. Hold that in your mind's eye and breathe. You can do it during meditation, but you can also do it outside of meditation. You can do it with your eyes open or eyes closed. But the longer you can just hold something that doesn't mean anything in your head, you'll start to feel that your awareness can expand. Your awareness can grow bigger. It can fill the space that was previously filled by names, forms, and values. And when you expand that awareness within your mind, within yourself, and you start to really identify with that awareness and realize that that awareness is you, then once that bubble is big enough and you can hold on to it, that's when you look out. You look out from that place of nothingness, of no thingness. You look out from that place, and the place around you becomes more vibrant. it becomes more real. And you start to realize that your awareness was terribly constricted this entire time. Once again, this is just one exercise. But your awareness can expand. And expanded awareness can truly experience things, rather than just experiencing expectation again and again and again every time you encounter something similar. Most of us experience our expectations. We don't fully experience things. And once you start to realize this, it can become scary that most people don't realize this, and that this is something that seems so simple. To letting go of things seems so simple. Why didn't we do that before? Why haven't we been doing that? Being truly present, it takes some growth as a person, and it takes practice. It takes practice in seeing without attachment, of thinking without having all of these other things fill your mind. The mind itself is a tool, but it can inhibit us, cause us pain, and allow us to feel incredibly crammed in and claustrophobic within ourselves without us even realizing it. When it's not trained, when it's allowed to just keep on spinning. To train the mind, the little exercises like the circle one are incredibly helpful. Being present takes practice, but you can do it. At any rate, thank you very much for watching. Like this video, it really helps out the channel. Feel free to leave a comment. I read all comments, and I try to get back to every person who comments. And feel free to share this wherever you like. And also feel free to become a patron on Patreon at patreon.com/darkrealist, capital D, capital R. Once again, patreon.com/darkrealist, capital D, capital R. If you like my channel, you like my work, you can support me on there. I greatly appreciate it. Practice being present. It doesn't come all at once until it does. I hope all of you have a wonderful day.